having those relationships is even more important than having the hard skills sometimes. It's because you need people that know you well and that are able to give you the feedback that you need in order to grow.
Hi, everyone. It's Dean.
And it's B. We're here to help you build your commercial real estate network so you can get your foot in the door and design the career of your dreams.
We interview leaders in commercial real estate and hear their stories of failure, triumph, basic survival, and hard-won wisdom.
It's like having coffee with the real estate pro.
You're listening to How I Got My Job. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to How I Got My Job. It's Dean and
It's B.
B. We are pretty excited about this next guest, a little bit different than a usual guest on our show, but it is really an incredible success story for Coffee Connectors and the Opportunity Internship. B, you wanna break the news to our listeners?
So Massiel Flores, who has been with us through our 6-week Opportunity Internship, she came back for the fall/winter internship that we offered, and Massiel, she got a job. So it's we're excited to announce it here for the first time. People are hearing it. Let me introduce you, Massiel, and then we can jump right into it. How about that? So Massiel was born and raised in Nicaragua. She went to Boston College and received her BA in Management and Leadership minor with a leadership minor with honors. Let's make sure we note that. She moved on to go to Suffolk University and got her master's in business analytics and marketing. She, like I mentioned, did the Opportunity Internship, and we'll talk about, her experience and all that goes into doing that. Massiel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, B. Hi, Dean. I'm so excited to be here today. So excited to be a resource with my limited experience in the working world to every student listening. And I'm very, very happy to just get the episode started.
So, Massiel, quick question. When did you find out you got the job?
Last night. It hasn't even been 24 hours. I was on my way back home from NorthBridge after a long day of working, and I got a phone call, and I saw it was the HR director. I was really scared because the last time I got a phone call like that, it was bad news. And I think that that's also important for me to say, right now we're talking about such a great milestone and excitement, and people don't usually talk about all the no's that you get before getting to the one yes. So that would be the first thing that I would say. So excited, but also have to acknowledge that before this one yes, there were 25 no's.
And real quick, who was your first call to let know that you got the job?
My mom. My mom is back home in Nicaragua. She immediately started crying. Of course, she didn't pick up the phone, and it was my sisters on the video call. And then I'm like, guys, wait, I need to call mom. And they're like, of course she doesn't answer when this important stuff. But it was a really, really exciting moment. My dad was also there. He got all red, but he didn't cry because, he doesn't cry. But it was so exciting.
Well, everyone...
All right, well, let's get into it.
No,
B.
it's okay. Everyone here at NorthBridge is excited for you. We are so proud of you, and we look forward to seeing what you really are going to do in this real estate world. But let's just get to know you a little bit, Massiel, because like you said, this is going to be a great resource for students. So let's get started. How did you learn about Coffee Connectors and the Opportunity Internship program that we offer?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, last May, I had just recently graduated from my master's. A few years before that, I had gotten my bachelor's in international relations and also studied a bit of management. So I was introduced to the management world that way, but didn't really understand where I wanted to go with it. After getting, technical skills with my master's, I really started to look into the investment management and financial services world. And I'm a big research person. I'm a big list person. So I kind of was just going through different career paths and firms that exist within the Boston area that could have been a good fit for me. And one day I was just scrolling through Handshake. I came across the opportunity at Northbridge. And honestly, what really called me was the emphasis on first generation students. I think when you go into the investment management world, although there is a big push towards making it more diverse and open to underrepresented students, including but not limited to first generation students, the opportunities are still far and few in between. So that really caught my eye. Um, and then, Coffee Connectors really underlies the importance of building out your network, putting yourself out there, having conversations with people that can teach you a lot about how the world works, although that sounds so basic. But when you don't have that basis from your house or your family life, you kind of just want to know how all of this comes together and works. So those were the two biggest things that really drew me into the program in
So
Northbridge.
let's take the time to break down your experience with both the Coffee Connectors program as well as the Opportunity Internship, because I do think that students who are might be interested in learning about these programs, coming from someone who's actually experienced it, this will be a good opportunity for them to hear. So, starting with the 6 week internship, what did you expect? What
Mm-hmm.
was the overall experience for you?
So, coming into the internship, I really like that during our conversation, B, you really emphasized the word education. So that made it a bit more digestible for me because I honestly didn't even understand what commercial real estate was before coming into the internship. So I knew what education is and I know I'm good at studying. So knowing that I was going to come in and kind of just study, learn from my peers, learn from the Northbridge team, etc., was a challenge that I was very excited to take. Um, but honestly, beyond that, I knew it was a rotational program that you went through the different departments that exist within Northbridge. I knew Northbridge is vertically integrated, basically means for any student out there is Northbridge does everything in house from acquisitions to investor relations to asset management and everything in between. Um, the other thing that really made me excited was the opportunity of having a final presentation and portraying and just presenting to the entire company what I had just learned in those 6 weeks. Um, but beyond that, and I think it applies to not only the internship, but the Coffee Connectors program, but also just being in this world of investment management, is the relationships, the opportunity to speaking to people at the different levels of the company and the different departments from whom you can really learn a lot.
So, Massiel, I'm always interested in this, and I appreciate the words about Northbridge, but I'm thinking sort of more broadly about students, first gen students taking on an internship, and you come in that first day. If you're in any kind of meeting, they're throwing all these terms around.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to know what's going on. Towards the end of the internship, you really begin to get a command. But those first couple weeks, I think, are really challenging
Yeah.
for folks. And I'm curious as to what your experience was and how you managed going from, hey, I'm learning this stuff for the first time. I may have never heard about a cap rate before because I'm not in commercial real estate, to, okay, I can make a presentation in front of 50 finance professionals and be able to answer their questions
And
in
Maciel,
detail.
before you answer that, I want students to understand that piece that Dean just mentioned. As an intern here, you will have to present in front of all 43 employees. And to me, that was an important part of the program because for me, in order to know that I got something and I understood the concepts, I had to apply it. So it was very important to include that into the internship program. So I just want to make folks understand what Dean was mentioning there. So Maciel, go ahead and jump right in.
I think one of the first things that I always say to any student and even to myself when I'm walking into a new place is it's okay to be scared. If you're not scared or feel nervous about it, it typically means that you don't care, and caring is a really positive thing. So everyone is scared when you walk into a new room. It's about what you do with that feeling. And for me, what was really helpful was setting goals that were small at the beginning, but could have a big effect by the end of the 6 weeks. So, for example, I made a goal to myself of introducing myself to at least one person per day, and I know that sounds super small, but it's 43 people. And the way I thought about it was, okay, if I meet one new person per day and I'm like, hi, my name is Massiel, nice to meet you. At the end of the 6 weeks, I was going to get a better grasp of like who I was working with on a day to day basis. And I think that applies to any company that you're in. Of course, it might be a bit scarier if you're at a company that has 500 employees, but the more that you know who you're surrounded by every day makes it a bit more accessible. I would also think that one of the things that really helped me was as I became more confident taking up space was asking questions and understanding that it's okay to not have all the answers. I think that sometimes, and I bet a lot of first gen students are going to relate to this, we are very hard on ourselves. We want to have every single answer. We want to be in control and we want to have everything figured out, but that's not possible. And the only way that you are going to be able to get answers is by asking those questions. And by asking questions, I don't just mean what is a cap rate? No, you have to go in, do some research. If you're going into a meeting and you see the calendar invite, okay, I'm meeting with B. Thavenel and Dean Atkins. Where did these people go to school? Try to find a common ground that connects you to individuals at a personal level. Because I think that when you can find a personal connection to someone, it makes it a bit easier to build that professional relationship. But another thing that I would say that's so, so, so important, it's being genuine with it. People can really see when you're kind of just saying things to say or just trying to fill up the air. And I'm still learning this. I'm trying to not fill up the air with words when sometimes it's just better to listen. So that's another thing that I think it's super important, especially for first gens who always want to have the answers to everything.
Marcia, I think that's a great point, and I think it also highlights another issue uh, that we see, which is really the interconnection between the soft skills that
Mm.
you're talking about, that networking. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I want to meet somebody. I need to research about them. I need to create a connection. And those hard skills, which are, I need to be able to be learning in this and learning, how to understand how real estate or business works. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you brought up a good point that the research before you go into a situation requires both. It's researching on the soft side to understand who you're talking with, but it's also researching on the hard side so that you don't want to ask, what is a cap rate? You want to say, hey, I've been reading up on cap rates last night. Can you explain how this would apply in this situation? Or I was confused about this. So you've shown your initiative. I'm curious how you think of that balance. Did you find one more important than the other? And has that changed as you've grown over these past couple of years with different internships and work experience?
I think that's a really good question. Right now, I'm still figuring out that balance because I think it really depends on who you're talking to and kind of the situation that you're approaching. Um, I would say, as an overall advice that I've gotten just from different people that I've spoken to, they really emphasize the importance of making sure that you're confident on your quote unquote hard skills so that you have not only the self confidence, but also the reputation or the credibility to speak on behalf of your work. Um, I would say that I define myself as someone that's very balanced in both. I I'm not scared of data. I really like data analysis. But at the end of the day, another thing that I have also heard through advice is the fact that this world is relationship driven. And if you don't know how to really build those relationships in a genuine, honest way that is long lasting, then you could have all the hard skills, but your success won't be as continued or as strong if you don't have those foundations with people that trust you. And this is not necessarily answering the question, but something also really important why I think having those relationships is even more important than having the hard skills sometimes is because you need people that know you well and that are able to give you the feedback that you need in order to grow. Because if you're always in a place where you feel comfortable or confident on your hard skills, but you don't work with people that would be, that you would feel comfortable going into their door, knocking and saying, "Hi, do you have 2 minutes? Can I please ask you how I could have done this better? Or what are the expectations on this project?" Then your progress on those hard skills is going to halt. So I think it's a beautiful balance and a beautiful dance that I'm still trying to figure out um, through listening to advice to people that are in the industry, mentors, friends, and also my personality, because I think that's also super important. Understanding who you are and not letting your personality, not suppressing your personality, and really owning up all the skills that you are as a whole.
Thank you, Maciel, for walking through that, just because it's important for students to hear it from another student or
Mhm.
previous student who is now going into the workplace. So that's a great insight. Moving on
Mhm.
to coffee connectors and the networking portion of it, you kind of touched based on it. We kind of talked about how soft skills were important, but I think it's important to
Yeah.
hone in on the soft skills a little bit more. I think we understand
Yeah.
logically how hard skills come into play. But soft skills, the networking part, I think for first generation students specifically, I don't think we understand how important it is. So, Maciel, can you walk us through where did you figure out that importance, and and how did it work out for you? Because I know that ultimately that's how you got this job, right? Going back to the title of this podcast, how you got your job. So, walk us through that experience.
Yeah. I during undergrad, I was the kind of person that was there at the career center almost every week during my senior year. Um, and I don't think this is the university's fault, but they didn't really underlie the importance of networking, especially for first generation students. Although I heard it, I didn't really understand how to go about it and how to do it. Um, so genuinely, the first time that I truly, truly understood the value of it was when I came to Northbridge, and I heard so much about networking program, reach out to people, talk to people. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a fair shot. I'm gonna put myself out there. I had done networking in the past, but I think something that really wasn't getting me to the next level was that follow up. And when I understood how important it is, going back to the long lasting relationships and kind of cliche, but like watering it like plants and making sure that people, hear your good news from you, hear your bad news from you, and just build that confidence and relationship in each other was super important. And that was another thing that I just wanted to share in a more general way. I already have my master's and I didn't understand the importance of networking to the level that I do now, even after I got my master's. And for a while, that made me feel a bit insecure, uncomfortable navigating those spaces. But I want to say to like first gen people, it's better that you understand it when you're 24, 25 than to never understand it. Um and yeah, when I go into those calls, I always just I'm a bit scared because it can be nerve wracking walking into a room or getting into a Zoom with a person that you don't know. But for general advice on like networking and what has worked for me is whenever I have the chance to meet someone in person, I know it's so scary, but I try to go and do it because really having that just like physical connection of seeing people's body language and just understanding how to better react to those situations really teaches you a lot, not only about networking but about yourself. Like, how do you present yourself? Very small things, but like, how do you sit when you're sitting across the table from someone? Another thing that really helped me through being able to get this job was every time that I went into a meeting with my connector that helped me with this job in particular, was I knew that he was giving me 10 to 15 minutes of his time, that in his time is like 3 hours. So I made sure that I went in with the questions that I needed to get answered, with the updates that he needed to hear, um, to make sure that I was giving thought before the call to really understand, okay, I'm going to talk to this person, but what do I want to get out of it? And what can I offer to him at this point? And sometimes, honestly, when you're a young person, there's not a lot you can offer at the moment, but always thinking not only what you can get out of the situation, but how you can help them, because it's also a two-way street. And that's how you build those relationships where people know that they can also rely on you.
That's well said, Maciel. I think our audience would love to hear, and I think it's helpful, giving us the background and the thought process behind this. But do you mind sort of digging in and just going, you were just through the job search. Give us exactly how you approached it and how did you connect the dots to working at Partners Capital, which is an unbelievable place to work.
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of tears shed, like I said, a lot of interviews. Um, I really started with researching, understanding, okay, what are the other options within investment management? What's important to me? And I realized that something I've really liked in the last couple of months, and I don't just say it because both of you are on this call, I promise that I mean it, is just working with different departments and feeling comfortable across the different departments to ask questions, and knowing that those people are going to be able to like kindly answer those questions that I have. So when I was looking at different firms, I knew that it was important for me to feel challenged and to work across different teams, and be able to quickly just pivot and understand how everything comes together. Because at the end of the day, yeah, you're working with different teams, but everyone's working towards the same goal. And at the beginning, honestly, I didn't understand, for example, in commercial real estate, like, where does acquisitions work with investor relations? Like, that seems so far-fetched and like so disregarded. But when you think about it, you're like, okay, this totally makes sense. So when I was thinking about my job search, I wanted to be really intentional of being at a place where I could really learn a lot, where I could be consistently challenged, but where I could also be myself, and where I would show up to these interviews and people were excited to get to know me, get to know my background, and just ask questions that felt genuine. I mean, I also, just with my international relations background, I understand just social political context and historical context across the world. And one of my favorite things to say is you're not going to give the same recommendation to a firm if they're in Singapore or if they're in Brazil. And mentioning earlier that I have that really good balance, I wanted to be at a place where I could leverage both of those different kind of skills that I have. But more so digging specific on the job search, once I determined the area of investment management that I wanted to be in, or the areas, I should say, I reached out to as many people as I could on LinkedIn, through email, taking advantage of the Coffee Connectors program. I know it can be scary for students to ask, "Hi, do you know of any, person or two people that would be willing and able to like meet with me?" But honestly, that's the only real way you're going to be able to grow your network. And follow up, follow up, follow up. Stay in front of people, not in a way where you're calling them every single day, but just people are very busy and they want to help you, but they just have other priorities. So understanding that you also have to do your part in reaching out, being prepared. I also wrote cover letters for as many roles as I could, and I know that is time consuming. But once you identify roles that you really are interested in, that really narrows down the list. Because I think that the first time around, when I graduated undergrad, I kind of just wanted to get a job and I applied everywhere for any single job that would take me. And that ended up being more time consuming and more mentally exhausting because I wasn't focusing my efforts. So I would say that if possible, you should focus your efforts in X amount of firms, but really go deep into it and show your interest.
I'll add just and then bump it to B for the next question. I think I get a lot of people that I meet with just
Mm-hmm.
in the nature of this role. And a lot of people say, "Hey, I'm interested in everything." And it's really hard to help people that are interested in everything. And I always sort of tell them, look, there's two conversations. One is, what should I do with my life? And you should have a certain group of people that you ask, hey, what should I do with my life? And then there's times when you're actually looking to get a job or trying to get
Mm-hmm.
help with that. And I think that that's in a different bucket. And even if you're saying, hey, I want to try out investor relations,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be more helpful for people you're trying to get a job
Mm-hmm.
from. I think oftentimes people conflate the two, and it makes it more difficult to find opportunities for
And I do
folks.
want to jump in and say that when you are being connected with folks, the first conversation piece isn't, can you find me a job? I want
Oh
to
no.
put that out there. I think a lot of students may not understand that. It's really to get connected, have the connector, get to know who you are as a person, get to know them as a person, understand what they do. And jobs come in
Mm-hmm.
after. They'll think about you when positions come become available. So I want to really put that as a note to and a reminder, because I find that folks believe that reaching out to a connector, oh, you have to get me a job. That is not the reason for networking. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to miss the opportunity, Maciel, to talk about your experience of being an underrepresented person coming into this type of a space. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
understand that personally. And I want
Mm-hmm.
you, as someone who's younger and who is really feeling it, and I know you felt it probably in college, but then transitioning over into the workspace. Can you just talk about that experience? Because that is what some of the first generation students will feel.
Of course. And I can't I can't just dive deep into this conversation. I also have to say that I have a certain level of privilege. I went to an amazing school, had extremely good resources, but that doesn't mean that it gets less scary when you come into the professional world. I would say the first thing that was really important to me was seeing representation. Like, having conversations with you every single week, be throughout the internship, and just being like, okay, like we can relate at a more cultural level, and people that have a bit more experience and are really successful in this world. And that means that that is also available to me. I think that that's how people should look at it. If you look at someone that looks like you or reminds you of you, and they're doing amazing, don't think about it in a competitive way. Just say, if that person that looks like me and I can relate to has been able to do that, that's also available for me. And I'm going to go and I'm going to try to connect with them and try to learn from them, because I think that it can be really easy to fall into that negative competition. So that's something that I think it's super important to highlight. But for me, it was really important to stay true to myself. One of the things that I do that I really like is, whenever anyone asks my name, I say my name is Maciel. I could go and say Maciel, and there's nothing wrong with it, but that's not my name. That's not the name that I was given, or the pronunciation, rather. So, very small things like that, where I can just stay true to myself and kind of show myself as I am, and my identity is really important to me. Because um, something that my parents always told me that has really stuck with me is, you always look at the future being really positive, but you can never forget where you come from. Because at the end of the day, those values that you were raised with are more important than anything. Because tomorrow you can be in a really successful place, or you can be in a not so successful place, but at the end of the day, all that you have is your identity. So I'm very proud of how I grew up, how my family raised me, of my name. And I think people should be proud of all those things that remind them of their identity. But at the same time, be really respectful and open of understanding how dynamics might be different to what they're used to. I think sometimes people go extremes, and I don't think either extreme is good. Like, just trying to say, no, this is who I am and I'm never going to change, or saying, oh, I'm so different and I'm definitely going to change myself to just adapt. I think, again, the word of this episode is going to be balance. Trying to find that balance, trying to understand how you can merge those two things, and two things can be true at the same time. You can be navigating this new world, but also you don't have to lose yourself in the process of it. I would think that that was like my biggest realization.
Marcia, I like that point in the story about your name, because Sajith, who we had on our podcast from the church pension group, had a similar comment when he first started out, was that he didn't change his name to Sam or
Yeah.
anything else. He kept his name and wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that it was pronounced right. And I'm an awful at pronunciation. So Masael, did I get it right?
No, but
I
we're gonna
didn't,
get
and
there.
I
We
did the
are
same
gonna
thing
get
with
there.
Sajith. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get there,"
We're gonna
um,
get there.
which I think leads me to one of our final questions before B closes us out. But um, having been the exact um, sort of type of student that we're recruiting and excited about promoting, I know that there's a lot of us on the employer side that are trying to understand how to make things comfortable, and to address these issues. And I'd be curious if you had recommendations for the employers that are listening on this side about how they can set up policies, procedures. Maybe it's small things that people don't realize to be better in those positions.
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, there has to be, and I think there is an increased awareness, but there has to be an understanding that things are not where we want them to be. That's the first thing. And you have to be able to admit that there is room for improvement. And we are beyond pretending, for a lack of a better word, that there aren't those issues that are happening. So I would say from like the employer perspective, one of the most important things is just hearing from people that are underrepresented specifically what they want to be successful, or not that what they want, but also what they need to be successful at your own company. It would be ill advised on my end to say specifically like how each company can go about it, because on some research projects that I've been doing with V specifically about DEI, we've come across the circumstance that it really depends on how your team is structured, your budget is structured, the different teams that you are recruiting or not recruiting for. But I think um, the first step is thinking about what are small policies that could work within the teams that I already have. But another part beyond just promotion, and also recruitment, so building out the pipeline, which I think it's a big focus of NorthBridge, is making sure that the employees that you already have um, are having some training on what implicit bias means, on what the percentages are out there, what the gender pay gap is, because this sometimes gets, and I don't want to be controversial, but can get politicized. But the more fact based and evidence based that you can keep it, the better I think would resonate as a broader industry. So, again, those are just thoughts. I am very happy to have conversations with anyone that would want to dive deeper into it. But another thing, there's also frameworks that exist out there, like the DEI code, for example, or other codes that are already out there that even if you don't implement them, can provide a guiding principles to kind of move towards just a more diverse workplace. But beyond the employer side, I would also say it's really important on the employee side to also take up that space, because if you weren't qualified enough, you wouldn't have been given the opportunity. So own that up.
Massiel, that was a great way to end the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your insights, and I'm sure the students will as well. And the employers who are listening, I think those were great words of wisdom coming from someone who is just getting into this space. So to hear it from her is great. Thank you for your time, Massiel, and good luck with your first job out of college.
Thank you. Thank
Congratulations.
You,
yeah, we wish you all the best, and
thank you.
We hope that we're in communication,
of course,
for the long haul here.
Yeah.
And we'll be watching your success very
And don't
closely.
forget,
Massiel
has graduated. She's going to pay it forward. She will be connecting with folks as well. She will continue to be a connectee because networking never stops. But she is someone who you can reach out to and ask her questions one-on-one. So thank you for your time again, and have a good day.
Thank you for listening to How I Got My Job, a podcast from Coffee Connectors.
Coffee Connectors helps connect first-gen college students with a whole new level of opportunity in commercial real estate.
To learn more, visit coffeeconnectors.com.
We would love to connect with you.